In this video on my book Misguided Love, Christians, and the Rupture of LGBTQI2+ people, I'd like to talk a little bit about my research discoveries around the causes of the anger and hatred, homophobia that is often focused on sexual and gender minority people in Christian communities. In that research, I looked at some of the recent social research, and one of the interesting people I worked with in my research was a man called Jonathan Haidt, a psychologist, who has been doing research on what shapes people's biases. And the biases that we find are often shaped by very deep patterns in people's lives. Jonathan Haidt brings out some of those very interesting pieces. He looks particularly at politics and politics in the United States, and he shows how there are kind of two kinds of people in the United States context. And these parallel also some of the social attitudes around how to approach and understand the existence of sexual and gender minority people in society. I also looked at psychology and the work of Julia Kristeva, who is a Freudian analyst who has been thinking very deeply about this concept that she calls abjection, where people have this deep, guttural stomach reaction to some kinds of things and people. And often this is related deeply inside themselves. Julia Kristeva's work points to this idea of what we call internalized homophobia, that many of us, including myself, may have attitudes that are shaped because of our own discomfort with our own sexuality. The other people I look at is the very interesting scholar, René Girard, who looks at scapegoat theory and how we like in society and culture to choose a group of people that we single out and scapegoat. And that helps us deal with some of the other tensions when we focus away from the tensions we have amongst ourselves and focus it on a scapegoat or a scapegoat group. Then it helps to bring the society back into a kind of social cohesion. And all this work points to a very deep pattern, a socially formed pattern in our society that has biased people against sexual and gender minority people. And that bias is shaped partly by Christianity, and I'll talk in another video about that history and what I found in my research on the history. But one of the key pieces where that bias comes out is in the Bible. Lots of people say the Bible is against homosexuality. The problem with that statement is that the word homosexuality is a fairly modern word. It was invented in the 19th century, and it was used when people moved away from the description of same-sex relationships as a form of what they called sodomy, as the sin of sodomy, to a medicalized understanding which saw it as a psychiatric problem. That word homosexuality doesn't occur anywhere in the Christian or Hebrew scriptures. And in my next video, I'll talk a little bit about that.